were so much younger than today. I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I find I've changed my mind and opened up the doors. Help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being around. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me?
Well, this is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Raw Deal, right here on Revolution Radio Studio B, this 18th day of April 2025, joined by my co-host, Brian Davidson, and my special guest, Bill Bonatotti. We're going to begin with some of the latest stories and developments, the first of which I'm especially glad they are here to join me, because it concerns an open letter I've written to a fellow by the name of Victor Hugo Vaca III, which may be the most extraordinary case of digital harassment and cyberbullying that the world will ever see. This man has gone, put it colloquially, bananas in attacking me and Brian and Bill hundreds of times. And I want the world to understand what's going on, because the digital platforms, that BitChute and Rumble, are not enforcing their guidelines against harassment, a matter we are going to pursue. Here it is, open letter to Victor Hugo Vaca II, featuring the cover of one of his hundreds, mind you, hundreds of videos this man has done attacking us, including Brian and Bill, who are with me here today. Todd Collender affirms Win Young, Alex Jones, Jim Fetzer, Sandy Hook trials. A closer look at Sandy Hook. Get this, the editor's note gives you an idea of what this is all about. R. Win Young has cited Todd Collender in support of his thesis that I tossed my case, as you can see from cover image above. Listen to this 3-minute and 58-second clip, and you get a sense of Victor's style. He plays fast and loose with facts he does not understand, where Brian Davidson's connection to Sandy Hook is that he has gone into the Connecticut State Police files and found proof not only of no mass murder, but also that it was not an operating school. Victor speaks authoritatively, but has no idea what he's talking about. Unlike Victor, Hugo, and Win, Todd appears to be a reasonable man and has offered to do a show with us to sort things out. We have accepted. Let me just cite, in response to Victor Hugo's invitation for me to appear on his show, I wrote, Victor and Win. Having just found your invitation for me to appear on your show below, I noticed several points that raise concern. First, you refer to me as an atheist, where you should know that I am an agnostic. Second, you seem to expect others to join me, which was not the deal. I was not speaking for them. And third, you defer my appearance to after Easter, suggesting to me you might need time to set up an attack on me during the show. So it would be idiotic for me to join you for another round of smears. I'd like to have some proof of good faith or proper intentions, considering the following as litmus tests. A, do you and Win now acknowledge that I did not throw my case since I took it all the way to the Supreme Court and am fighting to reverse it, for which I have both documentary and witness proof? For documentary, see the 3 briefs attached. Petition for writ of certiorari, 16 May 2022. Motion to recuse Judge Frank Remington, 7 September 2024. And appellate reply brief, 13 January 2025, which prove my case remains active and cannot have been thrown. Indeed, I have 4 appeals currently pending before the Wisconsin Court of Appeals, District 4, as shown here. I did not throw my case. For witness, Bill Bonatotti, who assisted me with several of my briefs, sent Wynn 24 plus emails documenting that I was still engaged in court. And Kevin Barrett told you on his show, when you claimed that I had thrown my case, that you were wrong. And he knew you were wrong because he was there during my trial for damages. He even published a piece about it. While Ron Avery, who has an archive of documents from my case, has now published a new book about it, Judicial Plundering of Dr. James Fetzer 2024. The three of them are on the CC list and can respond. Should you or Wynn wish to deny the fact that, even after having been informed you have continued to lie about my case, are you and Wynn prepared to admit you are wrong and withdraw your attacks? In here I cite Kevin's article, which is just wonderful. The legal lynching of a truth seeker, Jim Fetzer Stalinist-style show trial on News.com, and the cover of the book by Ron Avery, Judicial Plundering of Dr. James H. Fetzer. Here you have Kevin's just marvelous book, essay. I don't think any other writing about my case captures the spirit of it as well as does Kevin's article. Now, Bill and Brian, I'm so pleased you happen to both be here on the occasion of this appearing. Let me start with you, Bill. True or false? You, as soon as you learned what Wynn was doing, you sought to inform him that he had it all wrong. Bill.
Well, what was Victor and I had done shows together with you, Jim, and he and I were still communicating. And initially I sent him information. He asked me to forward it to Wynn, which I did. I have the email records of that. And there were some questions I was having, which we're going to cover today on the FOIA hearings, that really are quite dramatic. We'll get to that. And that I wanted that brought forward. So they got the information. I kept calling Wynn and even Todd. Wynn only responded with a cease and desist notification by email and text. He never tried to engage me in any conversation on this.
Bill, does that mean Wynn wasn't interested in facts because his mind was already made up?
Well, you have to understand, for those who don't know, we can just quickly say it seems so, because Wynn's theory is that because you didn't pay for having insurance as a writer or author, you therefore, through the case, you're kind of controlled out. That's his whole premise. And which, of course, what really happened was wrongs without remedies when you were sued, Bill. So I'm sorry, did you want me to touch on that?
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, the insurance thing is ridiculous. Insurance would pay off a claim, but there was no legitimate claim. The case against me was fabricated, and I have massive evidence to prove it was the case, and that the judge was even acting in collusion with the Posner attorneys in bringing the case, for which I also have a mountain of evidence, which are among the reasons, of course, I'm seeking his recusal. So, Bill, yes, he also claimed that with federal issues of First Amendment and diversity because the different plaintiffs resided in different states. But your opinion about those claims is?
Well, first of all, touching on the first one, of course, you were dependent on wrongs without remedies. You were joined to the case. They were the publisher to use their lawyers in your defense. They did not. They caved. In plain and simple English. So now you're left without representation. And as you stated, you really seek divine representation. You couldn't talk to 70 law firms. You and who's the other gentleman, Jim?
Mike Palachek, co-author and co-editor. This was a collection of 13 essays by 13, it was more than 13 essays. I think they're probably around 30. By 13 authors, including 6 PhDs, where we established that the school had been closed by 2008, that there were no students or teachers there, and that it had been a FEMA drill presented as mass murder to promote gun control, where I even included the FEMA manual for the exercise as Appendix 1.
Okay, what's an interesting thing here, Jim? Let's step back and reframe all this for a moment. First of all, You're not liable for anything, nor is Alex. And I'm going to tell you why from the get-go. The onus is on plaintiff to prove the case against you. There's no guilt in criminal, by the way. Sometimes people mistakenly say so-and-so's guilty of. In civil, I should say, it's only liability. Either you're liable or you're not. But the onus on that is on plaintiff, and they have to prove malice. Now, let me cover something real quick for anyone out there. Jim, we always like to do this exercise to take 2 minutes. Yeah. Break out your cell phone or your laptop. Search this, 2012, FBI, Crime Table 8. That's the crime stats for cities and towns in every state. Jim says I talk too fast sometimes. Let me repeat it. 2012, FBI, Crime Table 8. Got it? Okay. I'm going to take a moment, breathe. Now, find Connecticut.
Yep.
Now, Sandy Hook is a village in Newtown. Scroll down to that. Newtown. The third column from the left is murders and non-negligent manslaughter. And what does it say? 0. It says 0 to this day. So we got a couple of things going on here. Has plaintiff sued? Who is liable? As a citizen reporter, let me tell people, I live right here. I went to Camp Whippowack in Newtown as a kid. I live in Fairfield County, and I've been exposing this in the Call-In app with David Sachs as a host, and here with Jim, and in X, and in Twitter. I've got 90,000 views on posts I put in X. I challenged Alex by going into his chats. He wouldn't take me in his lives, when I put my hand up, they call it. And Jim and I did shows in X called Treacherous Posse. We've been at this. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I've never been sued to get a declarative judgment from a judge to cease and desist by alleged parents. I've never, there's been no injunction of any kind. I have no assets to sue. I'm on SSCI. The point being is they could have done something. Nothing. You know why? Because we all have a right, according to our First Amendment rights of freedom of speech, that Judge Napolitano talked on in regard to his Alex piece, which you can find, everybody, if you look up Judge Knapp on Alex Jones' freedom of speech. Based on our freedom of speech, First Amendment, we have a right to our opinion, what's in public domain. There's nothing illegal about what Jim did. And clearly, when you see 0, you have a right to say, I believe it. You know what? It's still there. It still says 0. So clearly, they haven't sued the FBI to take it down. And I still believe it. There's no damage or defamation there, brothers and sisters. We all have a right to do that. Who is liable if it's wrong, playing devil's advocate? DOJ, FBI. Nobody else. So when Jim cites no one died, and so therefore, clearly, the death certificate must be falsified. And he has 4 forensic experts verifying that. What should have happened there, if you had an honest judge, is that Jim, although I don't know what Allison told, but anyway, whatever legal advice he got, motion to strike immediately. There's a non-suit here, right?
Bill,
there's no liability. Sorry.
Bill, you know a great deal about the case, but let me just correct a couple slight misstatements. There were 2 forensic document experts who found all 4 of the death certificates in the case to be fake, and I was being sued over declaring the one I had published to be fake. So they validated me, but the judge excluded them, just as the judge excluded the FBI report to which you refer, on the grounds that, and think of this, how absurd this is, that whether or not Sandy Hook occurred is not relevant to the truth or accuracy of the death certificate over which I was being sued, even though the death certificate states baldly that the decedent died at Sandy Hook on 14 December 2012 of multiple gunshot wounds. They claim, moreover, that Leonard Posner, who was a plaintiff, was not a public figure, and therefore they did not have to establish malice. So there are several aspects of this that were very, very peculiar. But certainly the spirit with which you're addressing these issues is correct. Let me turn to Brian, because the original falling out between Victor and Brian that led to all this was in utter ignorance of Brian of how much research he had done on Sandy Hook, including going into the Connecticut State Police files, where I've now linked it, which I submitted as Appendix E for my petition for reconsideration after the court had denied my initial petition for certiorari. And it's just wonderful where Brian found photographs and other records there that establish not only was there no mass murder, but that it was not even an operating school. Here are some included in his affidavit submitted to the court. For example, looking down the hallway, it's supposed to have the bodies of the teacher and the school psychologist lying in pools of blood, but there are no teachers, no bodies, no pools of blood. Similarly in the classrooms, and if you go in and you look around, you find that furniture is all shoved up against the wall. There are no student desks. There are no teachers' desks. It's really clear that this was not an operating school. Brian, your thoughts?
Well, Jim, I was prepping for this show, going back over some of my files just to brush up on it. I've done so many of these that sometimes I can't keep all my facts straight all the time. That affidavit is my statement about what I've observed and documented from the Connecticut State Police files. I can tell you that from a big picture perspective regarding Sandy Hook, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that none of the photographic evidence matches what is described as a crime scene inside of all of these Connecticut State Police files that are signed by different members of the Connecticut State Police Force, including 4 forensic photographers who took the photographs. Now, what you've got to realize about this is that Sandy Hook absolutely must be protected as an operation, because I'm sure that in order to get these professional people that have been involved in this to risk their reputation on something like this, there had to be promises made. And the problem is, if any of this ever got submitted properly and properly reviewed at a courtroom hearing, then all of these employees who have done different cases around Connecticut, criminal files of all different types, would be subject to a tremendous amount of scrutiny, and their testimony might not hold up if it was ever discovered. So Sandy Hook has to be protected by the authorities that be, because there are literally dozens and dozens of employees that are involved, that know about the involvement, and that information can never be submitted to court lest their testimony in all future cases and all previous cases be impugned. So it is of the absolute necessity that they protect this particular fortress, and they are going to use whatever means necessary and whatever means they possibly can, including vast amounts of propaganda, Pulitzer Prize winning pieces, sob stories all over the place. I noticed I think it was a New York Times article that was, praising the heroism of the photographers in a big article. And this was shortly after my affidavit was released. So it was obvious to me that it was a propaganda piece designed to counter the information that we had submitted to the Supreme Court at that particular time. Now, as for the crime scene, you do not have to be a private investigator or anybody special whatsoever to understand where blood ought to be, where the bodies ought to have been, given the types of weapons used, how some bullet paths don't match what is being told, and there are physical impossibilities all over this crime scene, including the words written in red outside of room number 3, needs breach, written on the wall. It's like somebody reminded them that they were supposed to have breached that door using heavy equipment to get at the shooter, and they wrote it on the wall, but then they didn't do it. The entire crime scene is wrong. There's not enough blood at all. It doesn't make any sense that they could stack as many bodies as they said they stacked of children inside these bathrooms before they pulled them out in this quote-unquote horrific crime. The entire thing is fraudulent. I was onto it after my sister mentioned to me back in, I think it was 2015 that something wasn't quite right. I went to Dr. Fetzer's book. I had familiarized myself with Wolfgang Halbig, and I went through the files personally, independent, trying to make my own assertion as to what it was that really happened, who was telling me the truth, who was lying. So just to give you the 10,000-foot overview, it was at this particular point in time that I was waking up from my stupor watching Fox News. I had been propagandized and brainwashed. I was a relatively new private investigator with maybe 5 years of experience under my belt, maybe 7. And I had processed quite a few files, so I was familiar with how a criminal file ought to be designed. My sister said something's wrong. Look into it. I looked into it, and I came out with an entirely new viewpoint on everything that I thought I knew. I literally went through the process of cognitive dissonance because I realized that everything that I thought I knew for sure needs to be reevaluated and rethought. And that was from the bottom to the top. Now, when you go through a process like that, you don't know who to trust. The reason that I'm on Dr. Fetzer's channel today is that after that entire process of digging through Drudge Report and digging through all these different journalists and digging through all these different media outlets, I determined one thing for absolute certain. Dr. Fetzer is correct. Dr. Fetzer is correct that these powers that have engineered this particular event can never, ever, ever admit it. It can never, ever, ever be exposed in the mainstream media that this event took place the way it is, because it's so absolutely depraved and scummy that they would use the idea of slaughtered children to pass a series of different security apparatus spending bills that would follow for something like this. I like to think of these false flags, after analyzing them for years and years and years, as very simple, very simple. They run them to get the political support for security apparatus spending bills that they couldn't have gotten otherwise. Think of 9/11 and think of the Patriot Act that shortly followed. Folks, I'm going to give you some big picture facts here. Prior to 9/11, another massive false flag, the budget for all the agencies that eventually made up the Department of Homeland Security was $34 billion at that time. After September 11th, that budget went up to $84 billion as FEMA was put together, Department of Homeland Security was put together, and a number of different agencies were reorganized. Today, that budget is closer to $840 billion. They've continued with the false flags. They've continued to press this on the public. There's been multiple staged, engineered events, and our job is to be honest and expose them. That's exactly what we're doing. The consequences be damned. This is why we're in the situation we are, because we have to deal with the fact that we're up against this machine that absolutely must protect this fortress of lies.
Oh, that was marvelous, Brian. Bill, would you like to add further thoughts of yours?
Yeah, sure. First, thanks for correcting me. Like Brian said, there's a lot to rehash and get straight. That's where I made the error, where you had 2 forensic experts looking at 4 death certificates that were obviously fraudulent. Now, I want to go back to the 7th Amendment, because people may not realize, based on the 7th Amendment, if you have a $20 dispute, it's an old common law, and adverse evidence, that means evidence that contradicts that brought by the opposing counsel and plaintiffs, then you're entitled to a jury trial based on what's called the merits of the case, the facts. Well, when a judge eliminates all adverse evidence of Jim Fetzer in pretrial conference, that judge is then thwarting Jim's ability to represent himself and to use discovery and to actually present a case, right? Because he eliminated all that, Jim. And maybe you want to touch on that right now, or
no? Of course you're right. No, of course you're right. That's exactly what happened. He wouldn't allow any of my proof to be admitted into evidence, so he could manufacture the outcome of there be no disputed facts when every aspect of this was in dispute. I laid it all out in my answer, including the FBI Consolidated Crime Report for 2012, and he simply cut it out. Just as when I had the reports of the 2 forensic document experts which were uncontested by the plaintiff, by the way. They had no expert to affirm that this death certificate was, in fact, authentic. It was his style of creating a situation where he could issue the verdict that I was guilty of defamation when it was completely contrary to the facts, but where he enabled himself to make judgments about both the facts and the law, in spite of asserting repeatedly that juries determine facts, judges apply law. He created a non-jury trial where he exercised both to my gross disadvantage, thereby, together in collusion with the Posner attorneys, depriving me of my constitutional rights under color of law, which is why I took it all the way to the Supreme Court as a violation of my 7th Amendment right to a trial by jury and of the 14th Amendment right to equal justice under law. Because in Texas, for example, which has a proper summary judgment procedure, it would have been thrown out of court. Well,
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Management would like to take a moment to thank the listeners and hosts for all their support that has made Revolution Radio one of the biggest platforms for free speech in an ever-growing dark world of censorship. Unfortunately, this platform for free speech has never been free. We need the support of the people. It is the people like you, yes, you, that keeps the station in the front lines of the battle against tyranny and oppression. Please help support Revolution Radio so free speech will not be silenced in a world that seems to be going deaf to the real truth. With your support, we will be able to become an even bigger pillar of light in a dark world.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Now, we're talking about two different issues, and we need to keep them clear in mind. Number one, what actually happened at Sandy Hook, and how much proof we have that it was indeed a FEMA drill, where some may or may not know that in the last 3 years, I've been in communication with two of the participants. One who was cast as Emily Parker, little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who was supposed to have been killed. Another as Victoria Soto, a teacher who allegedly heroically gave her life protecting her students. They're both alive and well. They and other members of the community who participated in this deception, this charade, have reported they like the book. Nobody died at Sandy Hook. They're all enthusiastic about the book because it's honest. But they're furious about the way in which I've been compromised by an improper judicial proceeding. They would like to see me prevail. And what we have here then is a lot of research, including those reports by Kevin Barrett about my legal lynching, and by the book by Ron Avery about my judicial plundering that document the abuse the court imposed because of the reasons that Brian Davidson has so eloquently outlined. This is a very big deal legally. And if it's exposed, it's a catastrophe for the whole state of Connecticut, all kinds of legal participants. We have state trooper after trooper who gave fraudulent, false affidavits, sworn under oath that they entered the school through the blowout in the window. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no evidence anyone entered through that blowout. The furniture's all in place. The glass is on the carpet. It's not crunched down. Besides, it was idiotic for them to go in one after another that way where they could tear their uniforms on the glass. The Three Stooges would have done better. Larry could have gone in, walked around, and opened the door for Mo, to come in. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the claims they've made up here. Now, what Bill has been all over is the fact that Wolfgang Halbig, who has also been tarnished with these smears for our efforts to expose what happened at Sandy Hook, where Wolfgang and I traveled together to Newtown in 2014, and where the police officials who were involved would not meet with us. They refused to meet with us, where he was not allowed to go into the bank that had all the deposits for Sandy Hook contributions, which are supposed to be accessible to the public. They sent over 7 or 8 Newtown cops to physically prevent Wolfgang Halbig from entering to examine those funds. We went to the location where the school had been, and it was all reduced to dirt clods. They'd already demolished the school, which, of course, was a crime scene. And that evening, we went to the meeting of the school board, and we were each allowed like 2 minutes to make a presentation. So Wolf made his, I made mine. What now has happened in this event, in a sequel, Wolfgang made efforts through freedom of action requests to get documents that would have substantiated the fraud. It had to do with a wide range of issues, including food delivery that were not going to Newtown, but were going to another location that had been designated as Sandy Hook to perpetrate the impression that the school hadn't been closed by 2008. In fact, I've learned from them it actually was closed in 2006. And it wasn't even an elementary school. It was a special needs school. You begin to appreciate the enormity of the deception. Wolfgang had 3 or 4 different hearings. Bill will be articulating about this, where Monty Frank, who was the attorney for Newtown, even sent away witnesses that had been brought in under subpoena, a completely outrageous act. But where Wolfgang did get some admissions of note. Bill, I want you to pick up here. We do have video. Bill has been very diligent in tracking it down. He meant to send it to me, but evidently our email is blocked. He sent it to me 2 different addresses. I don't have it. He has. We're trying to send it to Brian so we can play it because Brian has it, even though I do not. Bill, pick it up from there.
Oh, good. I confirmed with Russ. He got it too. So for some reason, yeah, our emails are being blocked. I'm glad to hear Brian got it. And I just want to mention later, I want to get to the Smith Modernization Act to relate to what Brian was saying, how laws have been passed that undermine the truth from coming out. But so put a pin in that. We'll get back to that. So regarding the FOIA hearings, there was, well, let's put it this way. April 24th, 2015, June 3rd, 2015, July 8th or 9th. I heard one commissioner say the 8th when he introduced the hearing, but I thought it was the 9th. Either way, 2015. And we got clips from that one, and we'll get to that. And then there was also, just to give you a heads up, there was February 18, 2016. There was supposed to be 4 weeks, no, how many weeks later? 2 weeks later, they were supposed to say that would be March 4th. And then you also have Kay Wilson with another appeal March 18th. So the reason I brought that all up is the idea that Wolf has thrown this. See, we have to remember, let's get back to this libelous real quick. Assertions by Wynn and Victor is that Wynn has a site called Operation Madcap, and it's R. Wynn Young. Anyone can go to that. You'll see the whole last half of it. He's attacking the gurus, Jim and Wolf, for basically being thrown the cases or being, I don't even know, it's an abstract assertion. And yet that's why I kept calling him. I'm like, Wynn, I understand where you're coming from, but you're making a lot of assumptions here. Let's talk. And the issue now that we're going to bring out, which I was wanting to bring out at the time, which we're bringing out now, thankfully, is the FOIA hearing. So if you go in, anyone goes into, let's say, using Yandex, you'll easily find the first two in Rumble. Good luck finding the rest of them. Boy, I really had to scour the Yandex to find them. You'll never find them in Google. So finally, no, I'm kind of on board this now. Within what, Jim? We start talking 2023, 2024, January 2024, maybe. No, it was April. So you see, I'm new on this. So I'm catching up big time. And I'm, from my experience in the courts here in Connecticut, I'm applying that. Just like Brian, full cognitive dissonance, watching CNN, Brian, watching Fox before. So big wake up for me. So let's go to this hearing. Let's go to the videotape. By the way, Brian, do you have it?
He sent me a link.
I'm not exactly sure what you guys are talking about. Are you talking about the Yandex link for the FOIA hearing?
Yeah, the heading, Brian, would be July 9th, 2015, Sandy Hook FOIA hearing. OMG, I finally found the third hearing. Let's watch. That's
I just said it in the chat. It's in the chat. Jim can play it. He's got control.
Well, I'm trying to, but I'm having a problem here. I'm sorry to say. I tried to link on it, and now it's disappeared. I'm not quite. Just keep talking, Bill, because you have so much to say here.
All right, so I'll introduce, hopefully it'll come up. What we have in that hearing, at the 5-minute mark, starts at 5 minutes. Okay, we have the sitting FOIA commissioner, Chairman Owen Egan, in the hearing. We have Commissioner Streeter, who sat the first two hearings, April 24th, 2015, and June 3rd, 2015, in the hearing. Also cited by Kay Wilson, she cites having talked to Commissioner Hennick in the hearing. He's not there to my knowledge, but she cites discussions with him. Why is that all relevant? What happened for Wolf was this. Kay and Wolf's, there are a couple matters. Let's unpack this. So they subpoenaed Kathy Gamos, Chocolate School principal, assistant principal, I believe, and Kevin Angelotti. Kay did, okay? And
you might explain who these people are. For example, that Kevin Angelotti is a custodian of the school. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks for cut in on any time to help me clarify. So, Attorney Kay Wilson, representing the Florida State Trooper, FEMA certified Attorney General certified school safety expert, Officer Wilfred Halbig. He's got this all right. He was school principal. He knows everything to uncover, boy, and he just tore this apart. So, like Brian said, they had to do everything they could to keep the truth from coming out. That's exactly what happened. So Kay issued subpoenas, and that was Commissioner Streeter at the time, wouldn't give her any enforcement power. You see, he was like, well, we don't have jurisdiction to really do anything about it. So this was being discussed with Dan Badani of InfoWars, so Alex is not ignorant. Dan Badani came up and was in these hearings and then talked to Wolf afterwards. So there's interviews with Dan too. Okay. There's a lot to digest. So getting to the July 9th hearing, what happens is in the hearing, all these commissioners are sitting there and Kay's making the case. She said, well, I talked to Commissioner Hennick. She was instructed to do that by Commissioner Streeter and Pryor. And Hennick told her, well, the commission, Jim and Brian, can issue subpoenas. The commissioner, as it turns out, and certainly honor Kay's, right? But, they're just not in the practice of doing it. This comes out in the July 9th hearing. Well, talk about what Brian was saying, thwarting a discovery, right? How can we get to the bottom of anything like that, right? So normally, just so you know, if a subpoena for appearance is violated, right, then the attorney who's a licensed, or me as a pro se litigant, I get subpoena requests approved. If my subpoena for appearance is violated, objection, judge or commissioner, motion to find a non-appearance witness in contempt of court. Please issue a bench warrant for their arrest or fine them till they appear. Something has to happen, ladies and gentlemen, to compel appearance. Never happened for Wolf, ever, with those two parties. There's a reason, and we're going to talk more about that. Then there was also an issue of the Newtown Police Department videos. Oh boy, what a runaround there. So, and then also the Connecticut State Police one, not to mention there was a third overreaching law enforcement agency there called the FBI. Okay, so we also have, Jim, the school has security cameras, right? And then you have witnesses there with video camera, their own cell phones, whatever. What I'm trying to say is there should be mountains of evidence you see on this. And what happened is, Jim, the Newtown State Police issue and Connecticut State Police issue videos I can get into. I just want to breathe and see if you want Brian to pitch in at this point or you want to pitch in. You tell me.
Well, Brian, would you like to comment, Brian?
No, I'm not going to say anything from a legal perspective. I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to go there. I think we expose this for the purpose of letting the general public know that we are right. We stand by our positions on this. We would be willing to defend our positions if we were pressed there. However, that's a very expensive proposition. I'm willing to let this one go because there's been so many of them. However, Jim is different than me. Jim has suffered actual damages that I have not. So my statements are from me, and I support Jim in whatever he decides he wants to do.
And just that
should be him and his lawyer.
Much appreciated, Brian. And of course, the trial for damages, which Kevin reported so stunningly with such sensitivity to the atmosphere, to what was really going on, he found me liable for $450,000. And when I had sought to expose that the party who came to Madison to testify under the name of Leonard Posner was not, in fact, Leonard Posner, where further research by Brian has confirmed it in a second affidavit that I've submitted as part of my motion to open sanction pursuant to extrinsic fraud and fraud upon the court, is clearly not the Sandy Hook Leonard Posner, but turns out to be the real guy's oldest son, just as the Noah Posner, the alleged decedent, is another fictional entity, just like Emily Parker, just like Victoria Soto, made up out of photographs of his younger son when he was a child and very, very photogenic. So that this whole thing is an enormous scam, which is why there's such a desperate effort by the court here, and it's Judge Frank Remington I'm seeking to have recused, to bottle it up. And I think Brian did a great job of just spelling out some of the consequences, the enormity, if it, in fact, comes to the attention of the public that this was enormous fraud, which I'm endeavoring to do with every capacity at my disposal. Bill, go ahead. We know, by the way, of course, that Wolfgang did have a success when the the first select man of Newtown, which is a position equivalent to mayor, Patricia LaLorda, was asked to place a sign, "Everyone must check in." And she said it had not been put there by Newtown, but rather by DHS, Homeland Security, which, if the official narrative were true, shouldn't have been there. So why don't you pick it up there, Bill?
Yeah, well, that was in the June 3rd FOIA hearing. For those who find it, around 2 hours and 15 minutes, Chief Cahill was being cross-examined and then comes to Patricia. Now, in that FOIA hearing and the one prior, we have the attempt of Wolfgang Halbig, first with FOIA requests by Attorney Spagnoli, I believe it is, something like that. I'm trying to remember. Spagnoli. No. Anyway, and then Kay takes over. Okay, so now they're trying to get the dash cam footage from the Newtown Police Department and later by this Connecticut State Police.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, listen to this kerfuffle, right? So what happens is...
Yeah, let me just add, the reason the dash cam footage is so important is, according to the official narrative, if you go to the Stephen Sadinsky's official report on Sandy Hook, which he took a year to reveal, they claim at specific locations and times 469 other students were being evacuated. In other words, it claims, and this is just fabricated, 489 students were there that day. Subtract the 20 who were dead. They had 469 to be evacuated. But there were no buses going in and out. Dickinson Drive was so jammed up, it was the only entry and access point. You couldn't have got a bus through there if you wanted to, nor any other emergency vehicles. There was no surge of EMTs, no string of ambulances to rush their little bodies. They didn't even call a medevac helicopter, which they do standardly even for drills. They had triage tarps out, but there were no bodies of dead or wounded ever placed on them because there were no bodies, dead or wounded. And by the way, I left out the punchline. When I sought to expose that this was an imposter, the judge found me in contempt of court and added another $650,000. So I wound up with a $1.1 million liability out of it, attempting to report the truth to the American people when actually handed at Sandy Hook. Go ahead, Bill. You're right on top.
Yeah, okay. So in the FOIA hearings, and you also see Dan Badandi interviewing Kay and Jim afterward. Okay, I'm sorry. I said Jim. I meant
Wolfgang. Yeah.
Okay. So what we have here is we have a situation, as I best understand it. Wolf went with Kay to the police department. Chief Cahill's laptop. They watched the dash cam footage. Now, Wolf and Kay put in a FOIA request for it. And what they got was out of the window footage, apparently, from best I understand from Kay's appeal. She realized it was a fraud March 18, 2016. But I don't find that March 4th hearing or anything beyond that in the index. So anyway, but what I'm getting at is it's all revealed in the July 9th hearing and the others. So what happens here is, so Wolf gets this, but no time and date stamp, okay, and no cruiser number. Well, if you try to take that to civil court, like what's FOIA for? FOIA is Freedom of Information Act to acquire evidence. Well, he was being thwarted to get the evidence he needed to then do any civil proceedings. You see, because if you bring in evidence that doesn't have the time and date stamp and is edited in any way, technically it's not admissible. So he's sabotaging him every step of the way. However, he does have Chief Cahill in that hearing saying, multiple hearings, that yes, whatever Wolf got was what they sent him. So there's this wrangling back and forth. Well, maybe it's Wolf's equipment, blah, blah. You know what I would have done if I was representing Wolf at that point? Let's play the videotape. You know what, Wolf, bring him in. We'll have Chief Cahill bring his laptop and let's play him. Let's play the videotape. Yeah, let's see what the hell's going on here, right? No, I'm not Kay. So I'm just saying I've litigated. Jim knows I don't get into it. This is what I would have done, right? Okay. Now, okay, so there's that issue. Wolf never gets time and date stamped and blah, 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 Newtown Police Department after all these FOIA investigations. So then let's take on the issue of the Connecticut State Police videos. because that's a whole other chapter. Okay. You want me to breathe?
Yeah,
Jim, you
go
wanna add,
ahead.
Brian,
Go
anything?
ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Keep talking.
I'll tell the audience all metadata is erased on all of these false flags. There's nothing you see that's authentic. Everything has been de-authenticated. There's nothing that could be defensible in court. There's nothing that could be validated. They will release enough to
Right.
put on a show. Folks, these shootings are all theater. It's theater. That's exactly what it is. There's nothing more, nothing less. It's pure theater.
Brian, now you
Thank
could
you.
introduce as evidence of consciousness of guilt, of attempt to suppress evidence that they have removed the metadata. In other words, I think the absence of metadata
They
is.
have to. They have to. Do you know how many criminal cases people are convicted because of these officers and their testimony? Do you have any idea what would happen to the court system? What would happen to all the people that have been incarcerated as a result of the people that have been involved in these? They absolutely have to protect this. They have to.
Yeah, but what I'm
Otherwise,
saying,
people go
don't-
nuts.
but don't you agree that the fact that the metadata has been reviewed is evidence of consciousness of guilt, of suppression of evidence? I mean, that
Pure theater.
they could be introduced for that
Yeah.
purpose.
We're in on the secret. That we get inside access because we do our research. We know. They know that we know. We know that they know that we know. Everybody knows, except for the general public and except for the large broadcasting organizations that have journalists that are on payroll. Everybody in that game will not touch this with a 10-foot pole because, folks, we are being lied to every day about so much.
I'm even,
regarding how this works.
ironically, I'm even on cordial relations with Lenny Posner, the guy who sued me. We directly, we have correspondence. I mean, it's very.
I have no doubt that those people respect us for what they do. Do
Yes.
they fear for us?
Yes.
Probably because they're in fear themselves. Remember, once somebody compromises their character, they have to live with that the rest of their lives. And it doesn't matter how much money you get. You still have to wake up every morning and go to bed every night.
Well, this is why, all these absurd attacks by Victor Hugo on you and me and Bill and Carl and Russ, I mean, are so outrageous. I mean, he's trying to destroy our character. And I do not think there's any altruistic aspect to this whatsoever. It's all deliberate, contrived, purposeful. Bill, go ahead.
Right, let me say to people, if you go to Rumble, you can find some very good videos on the FOIA hearing. You'll find the April 24th one pretty easily if you use Yandex anyway. I don't know about other browsers. So since we're having trouble playing things here, you can get it, ladies and gentlemen. Also, the June 3rd, 2008 one, I had to dig deeper, but I found it in Yandex. I also found the February 18th, 2016 one. So if you're diligent, you keep going through the algorithm. Look, that's how I did it. I'm just sharing with folks, okay? So there is corroborating evidence in the public domain. There's also a great video called We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook that came out first time 2014 that has a series of presenters anonymously presenting things. What's in there? Shelley, the third presenter, what does she have? It's going to go into the next issue, the Connecticut State Police report and the dash cam footage. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? That's admissible. It's in the public domain, okay? So under the hearsay rule, it's admissible in lieu of the fact that because the state police keep saying, guess what? Wolf, he put a FOIA in for the state police cameras, right? All the dash cam footage, and the judge approved it was FOIAble, okay? I mean, the evidence could be sequestered. So what happens is the state police claim only 3 videos they had out of 32. The rest of it was technical difficulties. And guess what? Just so happens those 3 videos, Brian, are them driving from Bethany down to 95 to Newtown, whatever route they took from the troop. That's it. They only have the commute. That's it. So wait a minute. So let's take that. That means 29 cruiser cams of state officers, all suddenly, Jim, what do you know? They're all dysfunctional. Okay, but what we have in the public domain, and we need to talk about Sandy Hook, is indeed what we're looking for. However, they also screwed that one as evidence. How? It could be objected to because, okay, so you have those 469 kids and I don't remember the times exactly, somewhere after 10 or so, half of them are supposed to have been walked out. Well, Shelley points out, she's reading the police report, and guess what? It's obviously the state police. It's obviously Sandy Hook parking lot. That's obvious, okay? And, screen goes black. But then supposedly she's reading the report, and 20 minutes later, I believe it was, 70 adults, because, of course, you have custodial staff, teachers, if it was open, et cetera, and nothing. Then the rest of that, other half of the kids, supposed to be walked out some 20 minutes after that, and that is all there in the video. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's blank. I mean, you have cops walking around, eating things, whatever, but no exit, no emergency exit of children. That's on the video, none.
One of the comments that has been made about the cops, having lunch, is if this had been a real mass murder, if you're seeing a lot of bodies of slaughtered kids, all the blood and swash, you're not going to have an appetite. I mean, the idea of eating lunch, and they seem very relaxed, absolutely normal, is already by itself an indication that something is wrong, that we're being played, and these are all just actors going through the motions. It's really quite embarrassing. But, I had the dash cam videos from 3 cameras where locations and times where evacuation was supposed to be taking place, and there's no evacuation taking place. We'll be right back with Brian Davidson and Bill Bonatotti. Stand by.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Was it a conspiracy? Did you know that the police in Boston were broadcasting "This is a drill, this is a drill" on bullhorns during the marathon? That the Boston Globe was tweeting that a demonstration bomb would be set off during the marathon for the benefit of bomb squad activities, and that one would be set off in 1 minute in front of the library, which happened as the Globe had announced. Peering through the smoke, you could see bodies with missing arms and legs, but there was no blood. The blood only showed up later and came out of a tube. They used amputee actors and a studio-quality smoke machine. Don't let yourself be played. Check out And Nobody Died in Boston Either. Available at moonrockbooks.com. That's moonrockbooks.com.
If you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. Because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Good evening.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried and we've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Please do continue with your explanations. Go forward.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So, all right, we were hoping to play that. It's only 3 minutes, really. The July hearing. If you find it, ladies and gentlemen, starts at 5 minutes. Of course, you watch the whole hearing if you want. It's just an hour and 10 minutes. And then for that about 3 or 4 minutes, Kay is making her case that she's was instructed by Commissioner Streeter and his assistant, I think it was Attorney Brown, best of my recollection, to talk to somebody at the Superior Court. Even Monty Frank, who's a lawyer with Cohen and Wolf representing the town of Newtown in all capacities, says, well, you go to the courthouse if you want. Wow, by the way, he's obstructing and he's actually witness tampering. And there's obviously evidence tampering happening here. Witness tampering is a felony. When he instructs the people Kay's subpoenaed, going back to Kathy Gamos and Kevin Ancelotti, not to appear, that is witness tampering. Now, obviously, we have evidence tampering. Hey, Brian, I'm good, man. They can sue me all they want. I've been talking about this for a long time and call in. It's not the first rodeo for me. And no one sues me. I never get sued by anybody. Nobody tries to get an injunction against me, some type of judgment of any kind. So I'm good. And I've been in acts everywhere. So I'm going to call it like it is. So what we got here is we have this obstruction. And when you're in a sworn testimony hearing, if you perjure yourself, that's a felony, right? If you witness tamper, that's a felony. If you see what I'm saying, there are crimes being committed here in these hearings. Now, I'm not Kay, but I would have objected and cited that for the court. In every hearing, I would say, well, the actual crimes being committed are objection. I motion to find so-and-so witness tampering, evidence tampering, etc. So anyway, Kay handled it the way she handled it.
You say this is it at 5 minutes into the video?
It starts at 5 minutes. Yes. Yes.
Let's just watch a few minutes of it.
Oh, great.
As you know, I represent Wolfgang Honvik. He is the foremost national expert on school safety in the United States. And the
volume is turned all the way up.
Citizens to obtain public documents from
So while we're waiting, that's the commissioner. That's the.
Commission to anyone else what the reasons are for the request. Nor should it matter.
Right, can you pause and identify who's who real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay, you got so from the left, as I'm looking at it, you got Monty Frank with his glasses on. That's the city attorney from Cohen and Wolf. They hired him. He's vice president of the American Bar Association at the time. Got a lot of power. You got Kay Wilson, that's Wolf's attorney. And Wolf must be sitting back a little bit because we can't see him right now. He's behind Kay, it looks like. Across from Kay, you have Commissioner Streeter in the darker sport jacket. And then you have the chairman of the FOIA Commission, that's Owen Egan in the gray. See that? So I don't know who's in the far left in the corner there, but Wolf's in between there. Wolf's in there. He just sit back. He tends to sit back sometimes. Okay, so those are the parties at hand. And in other words, the gravity to this here, we got all the heavy hitters from the FOIA Commission here is what I'm trying to say. Go ahead, Brian.
And to acquire these documents. So Mr. Helbig retained me to pursue his rights vis-a-vis two requests.
I can't hear it.
Hello.
FOIA requests to the town of Newtown, various entities within the town of Newtown. Through his former counsel, Attorney Spinella.
Correct.
Mr. Helbig.
Well, let me see if I can do anything to bring it up.
Request dated April 25th, 2014. And that is.
Why don't you go back? It's so short. Maybe now with a little bit more volume.
Hearing dates in which.
Can I make a suggestion too? You see it across the bottom? I can't read it because I'm on my cell phone. It's coming across in text.
Yeah.
Maybe Brian can read it out loud.
Sure, that'd be
You
great.
see what I mean?
Yes.
I'd like to thank you.
As you know, I wrote.
Go back to the start of the 5, would you?
So in the first part of the hearing, they're introducing one another. Who's who? Well, we just did that. So you know who's who there.
Refer to Officer Fidel. So these are very good errors on my part, and I ask that the record be amended to fix their names in the second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Jim, can you read it or somebody?
Sure.
I can't read it because my screen share
I'll do it.
audio is.
I'll do it. I'm good. Time. Yes, I would like to thank you, Commissioner and Commission. As you know, I represent Wolfgang Halbig. He is the foremost national expert on school safety in the United States, and the Freedom of Information Act is designed to enable citizens to obtain public documents from government agencies which are non-privileged. In most act, we know it should not matter to Commission or to anyone else what the reasons are for the request, nor should it matter that a citizen is pursuing an unpopular theory. In fact, it's precisely at that moment that the law in this commission should safeguard the rights of a citizen to acquire these documents. So Mr. Helbig could retain me to pursue his rights for these requests under FOIA to the town of Newtown and various entities within the town of Newtown through his former counsel, Attorney Spinella. He, Mr. Helbig, had attempted to acquire public records through a Freedom of Information Act request dated April 25th, 2014, and that is the first one on the docket that we are treating here. So we had 2 hearing dates in which these matters were combined, and it should be noted as a plenary matter that I had filed 2 separate witnesses, principal of Sanduke Elementary in Monroe, Connecticut, and Kevin, he was a chief custodian of this elementary school in Newtown at the time of the incident. I raised the issue of subpoenas with Commissioner Streeter on the first day of the hearing because I was informed by the town attorney, Frank said he had directed the witnesses not to appear. I think that it should be very troubling to the commission and certainly set up a very procedural canon I was told to go to the Superior Court to enforce the subpoenas. When I did leave for research, I found there were many case laws suggesting the court and the judges were reluctant to do it because they recite back to the fact that under the statute, this commission has a power to issue the subpoenas itself, I add. So, of course, I approached the commission and talked to Thomas and asked him if he'd wish the subpoenas through the commission. He said, we just don't do that. So it was quite a conundrum, a nice little catch-22. We were put in, I think, probably attorneys who regularly practice in this area probably know, attorneys like Frank, and this is all the more reason the commission should look unfavorably on the adversarial tactics of the respondent's attorney from the first FOIA request all the way to this hearing, which was riddled with his unsustained objections. So I turned my attention now to file number 14461, where there was a recommendation to dismiss our appeal in its entirety. I'm not going to speak to every single request that was made through that FOIA request dated April 25th, 2014, and I'm going to go to limit my comments to first, there was a request that the Town of Newtown School Board provide its meeting consent agenda for a meeting on January 23rd of 2023. So at the hearing, Mr. Halbig testified that he saw the children of the elementary school choir singing on national television during a Super Bowl on February 3rd, 2013. And this observation was corroborated by the testimony of Mr. Alexander, who was the current chairman of the Board of Education, member of the board. In 2013, he admitted there were students, in fact, from Newtown who went to the Super Bowl on February 3rd, 2013. However, there's nothing in any of these documents produced from the Board of Education about approving such a field trip for Newtown students to go to the Super Bowl. When is the express policy of the Board of Education such trip should be approved by the Board of Education? Had the witness is subpoena Kathy Gumo said she appeared to testify and not been directed not to appear, she would have had relevant information regarding whether she, as principal at the time of the trip, requested permission and directed to the superintendent, who then was directed by the Board of Education for approval for this particular trip. She failed to show because she was directed not to show how did 26 students end up going from Newtown Public School System, end up at the Super Bowl to perform without board approval. It's mystifying. So we're requesting the commission allow us to reconvene the hearing to have an opportunity to examine Kathy Goose, who was improperly directed not to appear by attorney. We are requesting the commission order we were able to obtain true and accurate copies of the consent agenda from the board that be produced for the date of January 23rd, 2023. Next, to our Newtown Police Department call log sheet request, we requested the Newtown Police Department produce call log sheets from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on December 14th of 2012. However, the call log sheet produced indicated it was one 9/11 call regarding an unwanted person at the Sandy Hook Elementary School at 9:35 a.m. on December 14, 2012. We have reason to believe these are not the actual call logs because 911 call that went to Newtown Police that morning clearly reported there were shots fired. Why don't the logs that were produced to us reflect that? Why do they merely say unwanted person? This raises a lot of questions as to whether we were given true, accurate, inaccurate call logs for the day of December 14, 2012, in addition to the priority code on the call log sheet we were given was listed as medium priority for unwanted person. Nevertheless, Chief H testified that some 22 units from Newtown PD were dispatched to the scene that day. It's known there were several 911 calls regarding the incident, not listed on the log we were given, and these facts raise a serious question about whether we were given true and accurate call logs for December 14, 2012. Turning attention now to our request, wherein we requested Newtown Police Department police vehicle dash camera video. Now, Mr. Halbig testified quite clearly that the copies of the dash cam videos we received and we were able to review did not have date and time stamps on them. Mr. Halbig also testified under oath that he viewed the videos on Chief K's own laptop and the date and time stamps did not appear. So while Chief Key may have testified, he checked the videos himself to the time and date stamp were there. I think that's a question of fact and that the commission ought to err in favor of Mr. Halbig's testimony, particularly since he viewed the videos on the chief's own laptop. I think it's more credible and very simple matter for the commission to direct and to order Chief Keogh and the Newtown Police Department to turn over copies of the original videos with a time and date stamp clearly visible. And we are asking the commission to do that. We are also asking the commission to fine Chief Keogh that he failed to appear appropriately to the request for the dash cam videos. We're requesting the commission order the chief to produce those dash cam videos with dates and timestamps clearly visible. Finally, we believe the commission should impose civil penalties for the chief failure to produce those dash cam videos. We're requesting such penalty be ordered by the commission to Connecticut General Statute 1-26. So in summary, we believe the commission ought to render an opinion that orders the Newtown Board of Education to produce true and accurate copies of its consent agenda for January 23rd of 2013, that the Newtown Police Department be ordered to produce true and accurate call log sheets for the day of December 14, 2012, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that it ought to consider, that it ought also order that the Newtown Police Department forthwith give us true and accurate copies of the original dash cam videos that we requested, and we're also seeking civil penalties for these. How far? This is an hour and 4, Bill. How far did you want to go? It's been a long road, hard road coming since April 25th, 2014. These requests were first filed. Do we have enough, Bill? Do we have enough?
Well, okay, I think we can stop there. There's more, but I think that shows you pretty clearly what she tried to go through to get compliance, and the commission themselves could issue subpoenas.
Yeah, Bill, when you put that together with Brian's explanation, how if they allow the truth to come out, the whole state of Connecticut collapses from a legal point of view, that the consequences would be enormous and profound. You can see why they're prevaricating, evading. They're not going to produce those because they're devastating evidence that no evacuation was taking place. So I know the reason you like it so much, Bill, is because it's coming through a judicial process. You know, that's just why I entered my court case. I wanted to have all my evidence vindicated by a judicial process. I never anticipated, as Wolfgang did not anticipate, that the legal commissions, or in my case, a judge, would in fact be predisposed to treat it in a certain manner with a predetermined outcome, which is exactly what you encountered here. I'd like Brian's comment. Brian, yours.
Well, I don't know that there's, look, they're going to have to gaslight. They have to gaslight. They have to dodge. They have to avoid. It's absolutely necessary, or they would have, like I said, legal Armageddon in the court system if any of the people that were involved in this that wear a badge were proven or examined even, or cross-examined and told the truth. If they were sworn in on this issue, it could mean devastation for the entire legal environment, for all those commissioners, for the entire town. The possibilities are endless in terms of what types of ramifications would take place. So what I'm saying in all of this is they must protect this at all costs. And I liken this to the Catholic Church having to protect the Pope speaking ex cathedra. They had to put together their councils. They had to call everybody anathema. They had to come along and they had to say, oh, the Protestant Reformation is a bunch of bunk. They had to put together the Jesuits. They had to do everything they possibly could to stop the rug of authority from being pulled out from underneath them because right now we're 13 years later and the legal ramifications are still so potentially devastating. This has to be protected from on high by the Prince of Darkness himself in order for them to continue functioning. And by the way, folks, Sandy Hook is one event that was relatively easy to expose. But if you go down the list of all the other shootings, you've got Orlando, you've got Buffalo, you've got Charlotte, you've got Nashville, you've got Uvalde, you've got Sutherland Springs, Santa Fe, you've got the Dallas police. You could go down a list forever. Look at Ole Dammegard's files. Ole Dammegard's files must analyze at least 500 events that have been happening since these false flags have started to really gain traction. And I've been through a tremendous amount of these files, taking a look at the evidence. Las Vegas, folks, in Las Vegas, I had the craziest smoking gun you've ever seen in your life. I had video of a rubber mannequin being given CPR inside of a wheelbarrow at a gas station. Talk about absolutely insane evidence. I had video of the emergency room entrance during the course after the shooting. There was no blood. Nobody came in. People came in, faked a few limpings. They but none of the, oh God, Sandy Hook is just one of the many, many, many events that have been perpetrated on the American public since they've begun with this technique of fear equals pass spending bills, security apparatus spending bills. This has been going on for a long time. This is nothing new. They've been doing it for a long, long time. Folks, since the very first false flag was run on the public and was successful, this has been going on. This is as old as deception itself. It goes all the way back.
Very nice. Very nice. Bill, pick it up.
Right. Now, the interesting thing about Sandy Hook, though, Brian, it's the one where we have the expert Wolfgang Halbig exposing it all. We actually have 7 hours of hearings. There's probably more because I can't find the last two of it all being exposed. You see, thanks to Wolfgang, no other false flag has been exposed in a court setting because the FOIA hearings are sworn-in proceedings. You see, so why this is so much, the gravity of this is so huge is that you, and I know. See, I've litigated, so as someone who's litigated, it's highly charged for me, obviously, to see this type of judicial abuse and abuse of discretion, fraud on the court. Jim and I wrote the motion open judgment, where you have what's called extrinsic fraud. Obviously, the Sandy Hook's a FEMA drill. It's brought into the court. It's called intrinsic once it's in the court. And then you have fraud on the court by the officers of the court, being the judges and opposing counsel. Now, getting back to this FOIA hearing, Jim, remember that email I started to read to you, how it involves treason, sedition? Do you want me to talk about that now, or
Sure.
do you want me to wait? You tell me.
Go now. Go now. Go now, Bill,
Okay.
because we're going to hit
Go
the
now.
break and we're going to invite callers. So go now.
Okay, real quick, let me back up. A couple of things to clarify for people what Kay exposed there. Obviously, we haven't even gotten to the Connecticut State Police videos. That was addressed in the future hearings. That would be February 18, 2016. We could do another show because we're running out of time. So we got the whole matter of the Connecticut State videos that we haven't even talked about yet, just thumbnail version. And Brian's right, they have to keep covering up. But this has all been exposed in sworn testimony. And there's a principle, a maxim, legal maxims, go way back to Latin legal maxims. Real quick, let me tell you what they are. 3 of them that are crucial here. Okay. Omnia, prosum, hold on a second. Falsus uno, falsus omnibus. You start falsifying things, falsus uno, falsus omnibus, that you get discredited and it encapsulates everything. Omnia prosumuntur contra spore latorum. All things can be charged against the wrongdoer, and get, in this case, against those who hide and destroy evidence. Omnia prosumuntur contra spore latorum. These go way back to Latin legal maxims. You see? So that's why as someone who litigates, I'm like, oh my God, this is bombshell, boom, boom. Too bad Wolf wasn't here to join us. I'd love to have him here. But anyway, and then you have res ipsa loquitur. What does that mean? The thing speaks for itself, like Brian's saying it, and like Ole says. He says, and Jim says, using inductive deductive reasoning, it's not only what you're seeing, it's what's not there that would be there if the events actually occurred, right? So that we have all that here. It ties right back to the premise of law, right back to those maxims. Now, so I hope I didn't talk too fast there. I'm trying to get it all in. That's why. So now there's so much here. So we see in those hearings, we got Kathy Gamos, by the way, who was at Chalk Hill School in Monroe. The school was closed. That's where the kids were, especially after the event. But Allison Sunny Maynard in her Real Colorado, and Jim interviewed her February 5th, 2020, best of my recollection. All the documents in the Real Colorado that expose these FOIA things. God bless her and what she did. It's all there. And maybe we could talk about that in another future piece, if you like, Jim. And then you had Kevin Ancelotti. Why is it important? When these people violate subpoena, well, then you can't question them and find out, well, what really happened, Kevin. There's a reason he violated subpoena. Obviously, like Brian said.
It was Monty Frank who told him he didn't have to come, right?
Well, that is literally, it's a quasi-criminal act.
Yeah, by Monty Frank. Ancelotti's exempt, I think, because Monty Frank told him he didn't have to appear. So I think it's Monty Frank.
Yeah, you're cutting out. That's called witness tampering. That's a felony.
Yes.
All law officer knows that. Witness tampering and tampering with evidence are felonies. So there's crimes being committed in the hearing by opposing counsel. Yes. Subornated, meaning, Jim, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Oh, yes, we can hear you, Bill.
Yeah, subornated by the commissioners, meaning they perpetrated it, right? So now you have the commissioners all involved. This is the abuse of judicial discretion when you're in court, like Jim Knight wrote about in his notes.
Bill, we've hit a break. We've hit a break. We'll be right back with Bill Bonatotti and Brian Davidson talking about FOIA hearings denying Wolfgang Halbig his right to discovery. We'll be right back.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Management would like to take a moment to thank the listeners and hosts for all their support that has made Revolution Radio one of the biggest platforms for free speech in an ever-growing dark world of censorship. Unfortunately, this platform for free speech has never been free. We need the support of the people. It is the people like you, yes, you, that keeps the station in the front lines of the battle against tyranny and oppression. Please help support Revolution Radio so free speech will not be silenced in a world that seems to be going deaf to the real truth. With your support, we will be able to become an even bigger pillar of light in a dark world.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Revolution Radio.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Even the government admits that 9/11 was a conspiracy. But did you know that it was an inside job? That Osama had nothing to do with it? That the Twin Towers were blown apart by a sophisticated arrangement of mini or micro nukes? That Building 7 collapsed 7 hours later because of explosives planted in the building? Barry Jennings was there. He heard them go off and felt himself stepping over dead people. The U.S. Geological Survey conducted studies of dust gathered from 35 locations in lower Manhattan and found elements that would not have been there had this not been a nuclear event. Ironically, that means the government's own evidence contradicts the government's official position. 9/11 was brought to us compliments of the CIA, the neocons in the Department of Defense, and the Mossad. Don't let yourself be played. Read America Nuked on 9/11. Available at moonrockbooks.com. That's moonrockbooks.com.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Bill, you can make a few more comments, and then I want to open the lines to callers, but you go right ahead, Bill. Make those.
Okay, I'm going to read 4 quick paragraphs I put together regarding treason, sedition, violations of colored law, deprivation of rights. But a little teaser, maybe we come back and do that February 18th hearing where we get into the Connecticut State Police video issue, Jim, if you like that for the audience. That would be interesting in the future. So, now, the Constitution outlines the specific oath for federal officials, including judges and lawyers, mandating a solemn pledge to support and defend the Constitution. This oath found in Article 6 of the Constitution states that all other officials, including members of Congress, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Now, I contend there should be a grand jury investigation on this matter and congressional investigations to go into right there, right? So now, when judges are required, even under federal statutes, 28 U.S.C. Section 4453, which includes a commitment to administer justice impartially, right? Well, these commissioners act as judges in the FOIA hearings, you see. It is state FOIA, though. But I'd have to look up the Connecticut statute for that. I found the federal. Lawyers, as officers of the court, are also required to take an oath, often including a pledge to support the U.S. Constitution and state constitutions and to uphold the rules of professional conduct. Matter of fact, American Bar Association Ethic Code 8.3, they're supposed to report one another. If they're not, now of course I never do. That's ABA 8.3. So then we also have, obviously, I would contend, and Brian might want to chime in, nothing's happening here according to the rule of law, the Constitution, so it's obviously some other powers. And, I don't know if you, Jim, remember the motion to open that Bill Scott wrote, talked about the New World Order and how it influences all these matters and from the bigger picture. So we have outside forces that I contend constitute treason. Now, I got another 2 paragraphs, Jim. Should I cut it to the next show? Or do you want me to keep talking about treason, sedition? It's up to you.
Finish it, Bill.
I'll finish it. Okay, so treason, 18 U.S.C. Section 2381 and 2382 addresses treason and misprision of treason when a judge does it and hides it. You see what we got going on here? That's why I'm so adamant.
Bill, when you give your asides, you're making it twice as long. If you can read it, read it.
All right. Okay, so we have both crimes, they're crimes actually involving the betrayal of the United States. Section 2381 defines treason as levying war against the United States or adhering to their enemies, giving them and or aiding or comfort. Section 2382 defines misprision of treason as having knowledge of a treasonous act and failing to disclose it to the appropriate authorities. Sedition is a crime primarily defined in U.S. law as a conspiracy to overthrow the government by force. Specifically, 18 U.S.C. 2384 outlines the elements of seditious conspiracy, which includes conspiring to overthrow the government, levy war against it, oppose its authority, or interfere with the execution of its laws. Then we have deprivation of rights under color of law, that applies there. 18 U.S.C. Section 2241 and Section 242 are federal criminal statutes that address civil rights violations. Section 241 deals with conspiracy against rights, while Section 242 concerns deprivation of rights under color of law. Well, we have an outside force, as Bill Scott wrote, be great to pull that in some point, that is affecting our government.
Listen, I'm gonna open the lines and you can continue to read until we get a caller. If we get a caller, the number if you want to join a conversation with Brian Davidson, Bill Bonatotti, and me, 608-957-8727. 608-957-8727. Bill, go ahead and add anything you want. We'll just interrupt when a caller comes in. Go ahead.
I got it. So for those of you who consider using the Yandex browser, I'd like to talk about Allison Sonny Maynard's Real Colorado, where she dove into these. Boy, I learned a lot from her. And she's the expert. She's been an attorney. And I highly recommend we can cover that more in the future. I just want to recommend to the audience seeking that out. Go ahead. You want to say something, Jim?
Yeah, I got a first caller, 501 area code. Give us your first name and your state and join the conversation, 501.
Gabriel from Arkansas.
Go ahead, Gabriel.
Professor Fetzer, I love and agree with 99% of your news because it's true and correct. But there's 1% that you're wrong about, and it's my area of expertise. If you want me to continue to support you and Revolution Radio, I would really like an opportunity to set the record straight.
Well, but has that anything to do with what we're discussing here today, Gabriel? What's it about?
It has to do with your show Wednesday here on the Raw Deal, Monday on Authentic. Yeah, Monday on Authentic News.
What is the issue, Gabriel? Go ahead.
All right. Well, we'll start with Monday on Authentic News. You admitted to your audience that you never studied or looked into Freemasonry. And I told you that I'm a Freemason. I went through the higher degrees of Freemasonry. I have read around 10 books about Freemasonry. And I'm a Rosicrucian, which is significant because you can learn a lot more about Freemasonry from the Rudolf Steiner.
Okay, so I'm not an expert on Freemasonry. Yes, I agree. What's your next point?
Okay, so what I wanted to say was that the problem isn't Freemasonry. It's too many of the wrong people are members. Freemasonry itself is good. It holds its members.
Does any of this tie into our discussion of Sandy Hook, my court case, these videos attacking me, or any of that?
No, I was actually going to call you later on the other show. This might be a more appropriate show.
Yeah, call on RPN.
No, but I am familiar with Sandy Hook. I read your book, and I can also stay on for that and listen about that, if you want.
Well, go ahead. Do you want to say something about it? Have you been following our discussion here today?
Oh, absolutely. I listen to all of your shows.
Give me your thoughts, Gabriel, about what you've been hearing today about these attacks by Victor Hugo and so forth, and the deprivation of Wolfgang Halbig of access to Freedom of Information Act to the dash cam footage. Just go ahead, Gabriel. Give us some thoughts.
It bothers me a lot, and I saw your. You did a really, really good. It was just 2 months ago, I believe, video with Wolfgang. I saw that where you guys were both on video, and I saw that update. You did a couple of things recently with him that I watched that were really good. So
well, they were from the past. We haven't done anything very recently, but you check the dates. But I'm glad. Yeah, I traveled to Newtown with Wolfgang in 2014, and I am a huge admirer of Wolfgang. Go ahead, Gabriel. Give us one more thought. We got another caller going to join us, but you can hang around. Go ahead. Give us another thought.
My thought would be, I would love for us to get him in. Get him in. Wolfgang.
He was
invited.
He was invited. Yeah, he was invited today to join today, and I sent him the link, but he didn't pick up.
Listen, this may be very well be a legal issue that Wolfgang has been advised not to talk about.
Yeah,
and I'll just leave it at that.
Area code 608. Join the conversation. I know you're here from Wisconsin. Give us your first name, Joy. (608) 608 seemed to have been lost. Okay, Gabriel, did you want to add another thought or more?
I mean, I can listen if you want, and then if I have anything or hang up, it's up to you.
Do that. Go ahead, Bill. Continue with your critique there, what you were explaining. Go ahead, Bill.
Good. Hi, Gabriel. Well, you brought up Wolfgang, and what we have to recall also is that Wolf was, he was sued by Lenny Posner in Florida. And guess what happened when you had an honest judge who actually allowed discovery, Jim? Guess what happened?
Wolfgang
was represented.
Wolfgang won.
Yeah. Guess what happened? Celeste Payne was representing Wolfgang, and upsee, discovery. Guess what? Lenny Posner pulls out.
Yeah.
Right. So he lawfare Wolfgang. That's called lawfare. You bring a suit. Now you got to hire a lawyer. Blah blah blah. It takes a lot of your time and money. And then upon discovery, when you had an honest judge who was actually going to allow real discovery, Brian, Lenny pulls out. What does that say? Now, subsequently, somehow, with a complaint to the AG, which was Pam Bondi at the time. Well, let's see. She was the state's attorney. Then she became attorney general. So let me say, I'm not starting the timeline there. But anyway, she was in Florida at the time is what I'm trying to get at. And Wolf got arrested. Oh, my God. Well, first of all, this poor man, for anyone who's Johnny come lately, you say Wolfgang threw a case. This guy's been so abused. It's unbelievable. I mean, I hope he's watching, and I so wish he could talk. But I'm going to speak for him because I talked to Wolf 3 times and 25 minutes at a pop. So Wolf, first of all, he gets awoken at around 1:15 a.m. This is after the Florida homicide detectives visited him on behest of the state police, basically trying to silence him. And I had consulted my door many times trying to act like bullies to tell him to stop investigating or he's going to be arrested. Well, of course, Wolf wasn't going to back down when the homicide detectives come. So what happens next? Who shows up? The coppers to wake him up in the wee hours of the morning, scare the hell out of his wife and family, loved ones. And they walk him for over a mile across the field, golf course, cuffed. The man's got a bad knee. He was big, heavy, elderly. I'd already taken sleeping pills. What was that, a death walk, Jim? You see what I'm saying? He could have had a heart attack. It's outrageous. I'm so angry with now as we're disclosing all this FOIA stuff and it comes up, it's like layers that people jump in and don't know anything and attack you and Will's character. Now, our differences aside, that's us talking personal, whatever Victor's drumming up. I'm very disappointed because I never went public with any of my disagreements with you, Jim. And
let me just add, these were about Donald Trump. They had nothing to do with Sandy Hook or any of this other stuff. It was that Bill thought I was being played by Trump. And but at this point in time, I think he was probably right. But he unloaded a whole bunch of vitriol on sharing it with Victor that he thought was in confidence. But Victor will exploit and plunder any opportunity. So he's turned it around to make it public. But it had nothing to do with the issues we're addressing here. It had to do with Donald Trump. And everyone in America has had strong opinions about Trump and major disagreements with others in family or not. So just to understand. Go ahead, Bill.
Now, the issue with the FOIAs was up. I wanted them to come forward. I'm glad they are now. So that was frustrated. Plus, I don't want to get into it, but I was incarcerated under the Trump administration 2 months. He fired DJ Daley, task force of corruption, my direct contact. Moving on from that. So it's more than just my cursory feelings about Trump. We'll get into it another time. So anyway, so just like anyone in a relationship, either work, whatever, you have differences, and as men, we might tee off on one another. I never went into a show with Victor and freaking blew up and said anything about you, Jim.
Wait, Bill, we're good. We're good. Not a problem. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. So anyway, so where was I now? So we have the Wolf gets arrested. Now they book him on a felony, but the worm was a misdemeanor, and of course he got it all dropped because none of this was legal. Just like every arrest happened to me, 4 and 4 years, got them all dropped. So then Wolf says to me, "Do you know I was named as a defendant in the Alex Jones case?" I'm like, "What? I didn't know that at the time." I'm like, "Are you serious? They had nothing. Everything got dropped in Florida. What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, I was a defendant." I said, "Well, what happened?" He goes, "Well, I told, let's see, Monte Frank was the defendant. I told, the guy with the ponytail. I'm drawing a blank. I told
Norm Pettis. Norm Pettis.
Norm Pettis, that's right. He goes, "Well, I told Norm to depose me, Wolf, and then go ahead and subpoena the people who violated appearance subpoena in the FOIA hearings and go after all the documents we didn't get." I go, "Right, exactly." I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Never heard another word. Plaintiff must have dropped him, and he was never deposed." Of course not. Like Brian said, you got to cover up. So the Sandy Hook, Alex Jones matter is kabuki theater. It's all propaganda. Pursuing.
He's gone on with Tucker, and he said that he was under pressure from the DOJ and the parents, Sandy Hook parents, to concede the case, and that it was how did he put it? A sham trial? Brian, did you pick up on that? Comments you'd like to add here?
I saw the interview, and it was an interesting moment. Look, there are those of us that know things that don't talk about them for a number of different reasons.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to be in the crosshairs in terms of taking on this apparatus. This is not for small-time players to do.
Yeah.
We act as if we're journalists. We work as if we are immune from these types of attacks, but we are not. And Alex Jones is human. So is Tucker. Whatever the pressures were, I can tell you that when the game is this big, carrots and sticks of all shapes and sizes will be used to control the outcome. They absolutely have to. And I would say that they'll stop at nothing, including using the most despicable Mossad techniques you can possibly imagine to protect this particular fortress. This particular fortress is one that has made many, 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 many people very, very rich, including the military-industrial complex and the security-industrial complex. You are taking on something so big and so powerful that you've either got to have the faith of giants or you've got to have a death wish to go play this game professionally, full-time, and take these people on. I'm a licensed private investigator in the state of Texas. Do you think I wanted to go after Uvalde? Do you think that I wanted to go after the Texas Department of Public Safety, who holds my license, over that particular false flag, which was just one out of many? I mean, there are some of us that have a certain amount of wisdom and control when it comes to deciding which battles we will live and die to fight. And I know the audience wants us to fight up to the death, but I can tell you for sure that that might literally be the case. Is that really a hill that we all want to die on to do this? I think it's strong enough just to expose it half the time, and the other half the time, I want to see the truth come out. But then again, there's so much deception on so many levels about so many issues that you'll never, ever, ever get to the bottom of what is truth unless you're like me and you just start out with the Bible. That's my opinion.
Gabriel, did you want to add any further comments of your own here at this point?
Just that Posner character, what a dark, demonic, cold, dishonest, hateful character. That's all I have to say about that. And I've been studying martial arts my whole life. So if you want to set something up with Victor Hugo versus me, you could have Bill or private investigator there be the referee.
I love that, Gabriel. That's very dear of you to say. Very dear. Bill, go ahead. Add a few further thoughts. We're near concluding our conversation for today. Go ahead.
Right. Now, keep in mind, Wolf has kids, grandkids, so does Jim. Vulnerable. I mean, that's very scary, like Brian says. And as Robert David Steele said, they took him out, as Jim knows. So as he said, what they'll use is false federal warrants. Then they put you in a psych ward, try and get you medicated, then maybe suicided. Well, they put me in a psych ward for 2 months when they had no crimes against me ever. So I've been through that. They tried to get me involuntarily conserved twice, all in the Trump administration. That's why there's so much charge behind it. But I want to say, regarding the Smith Modernization Act of 2012 that Obama signed roughly about 6 months before Sandy Hook. So they put the legislation in place ahead of time. You're always going to see that. So for those people who don't know, I'll read this paragraph. It's not very long. So it's abbreviated SMMA. So the SMMA started out as HR 5736 on May 10, 2012. This is the Modernization Act. The original act was 1948. So the Modernization Act for the declared purpose to amend the United States Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948 to authorize the domestic dissemination of information and material about the United States intended primarily for foreign audiences and for other purposes. Well, you have to understand, U.S. radio into Europe and everything was propaganda. That's war propaganda, you see? So, yeah, there's who's he with there, Jim? Who's that lady?
It's
I don't even know.
Brian put it up. Brian.
Oh.
That's one of the Sandy Hook participants.
Oh, okay. Yeah. CIA
and many others are part of the.
Yeah.
See, it's one of the Coddles. That's the Coddle. That guy's last name was Coddle. He's one of the guys that were involved, and that's I believe his wife, and they were the fathers of Emily, Margaret Coddle, the parents. Or relatives, I should say. I'm not sure they're the parents, but they're the relatives. There's a lot to see.
Well, Robbie Parker was supposed to be, and her mother. Yeah, that's.
I think it was Robbie Parker, but
there
was a lot happening there.
Yeah.
So Jim, I have one more thought we can add.
Sure, go ahead.
For the 2012 FBI crime table 8, who's liable for it? DOJ, FBI. Guess who got $90 million in the fake Alex Jones trial? Bill Aldenberg, FBI SWAT team member, when he's totally exposed and sloppy sniper, is not being Bill Aldenberg, but being David Wheeler. And thanks to the good work of Carl Gallups, former police officer minister, and Barry Sartaro, the citizen reporter. Jim knows all about this. Sloppy sniper in Rumble, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, boy, carrying that rifle upside down by the magazine, pointing back with shoulder harness dangling, yada. And he doesn't even have the right gear on. His gear doesn't match anybody there. Doesn't have the FBI patch on this alt stage. And, anyone who wants to watch that, that's a good way to, because you have the court of public opinion, the court of law. The law gets really deep. But something like that, it's hard to deny that it's a stage event. Do you see what I mean? So show this. You might want to find that in Rumble, ladies and gentlemen. You can show that to your loved ones. Sloppy sniper. Cameras, I think it is. It's also in 153 News. There's other platforms you'll find it too. Maybe Bishop, haven't looked. Go ahead, Jim.
No, go right ahead.
Yeah. So obviously, Brian, I'm new, but I try and pick up as much as I can and bring it forward. And I try and dive into litigation because that's kind of what really gets me interested. You guys have done all this work. I want to say thank you, you and Wolf, Jim, and any differences Jenna had. It's kind of like father, son. We got that tension going, and about his son's, what would be his son's age. So, it happens. That's the way I look at it. It's no big deal. We argue, we get through it, So unfortunately, I thought I could talk to somebody about it. That turned out to be a big mistake. Very sad that he's gone that route. It's got nothing to do with Sandy Hook. In other words, this is what we should be talking about, what we're talking about right now. I'll end with that, Jim. I know we're almost done. 2 hours is almost up, right?
Yeah.
I keep talking, but.
Brian, would you like to make...
I have a photo up on the screen that was published by an outlet called Deseret.com. President, and the photo caption is President Barack Obama visits with the Parker family prior to the Newton Interfaith service on December 16, 2012. The funeral for Emily Parker, who was among the 20 school children killed Friday in a shooting rampage at Connecticut Elementary School, was held the following week in Ogden, Utah. So this is how closely connected the high power politicians are.
Robbie's not her father. Robbie's actually her uncle, and her real name isn't Emily Parker. Those girls aren't her sisters, they're her cousins. The whole thing was such a sham, but it was elaborate. A lot of planning went into it. And, you know, I've said a whole lot more other places if you want to check out and get more about Sandy Hook. Go to my College of Complexes, Sandy Hook. What we know now that we didn't know then, and you'll get an overview with photographs of what they look like today. You'll find a whole lot you didn't know. Let's have just a final closing thought. Gabriel, do you want to toss in a sentence, Gabriel?
Well, there's a really cool website that has a bunch of pictures and stuff that support all the stuff you're saying about Sandy Hook. I'm trying to look it up real quick.
Okay.
If you want to get back to me, if not, goodbye.
Sure. Bill,
if you want to do your own research, you just Google the Connecticut State Police files on Sandy Hook. Go take a look at what they released. Everything's in there. And if you want to do your own research, really open your eyes as to how serious this deception is and how easy it is to uncover. Just start taking a look at the things that aren't right. Look at the outhouses. Look at the way the actors of particularly done. Why did they destroy all this evidence? What really?
Bill.
Sandy Hook Research.com.